Okay, so, all right. So first we're going to talk about, this is our agenda for today. We'll talk about what it means to be pre-law broadly for the first part of the presentation. Next, we'll talk about your application year and what you can keep in mind for the time that you are getting ready to apply. This information is going to be customized. So whether you're thinking about applying during your senior year or taking a few years off, it will apply to you either way. So at the end of the presentation, I'll share some additional resources with you, and then we'll wrap up with the Q&A. And I just want to double check also, are y'all getting the captions? No captions? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll make sure that the captions are on. Oh, someone says yes. Okay. So I guess maybe you disable the captions. Anyway, I don't see them. Oh, if you click captions. Okay, so the captions are on then. Great. Let's keep going. All right, so before we get into things, I want to remind you all about the pre-law toolkit. Is there anyone that can maybe type or maybe unmute yourself and tell folks what the pre-law toolkit is, if you know what it is?
Yeah, it's this really awesome comprehensive courseworks page that I forgot how I got access to it the first time, but I think it was because I attended a similar session in my junior year. I'm a senior now. And it's really cool. It has like a schedule and a PowerPoint similar to this one, like an application schedule. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I did not pay Isabel to say all of that. But yes, Isabel is exactly right. Thank you. It is a collection of all of our pre-law resources. I send out weekly pre-law announcemements with events and different opportunities, scholarships, fellowships, anything that I find out about that's going on either on Barnard's campus or outside of the campus to keep you connected with the pre-law community. So I have here the little URL. If you haven't already signed up for it, this URL is for students, current students. If you are not a current student, if you're an alum, please email me. I'll have my email address at the end of the presentation for access. So let's begin with this question. What does it mean to be pre-law at Barnard? Anybody want to jump in and guess? Maybe Laura?
I'm actually here to learn more about it myself.
Ah, perfect. Yes. So what does it mean to be pre-law at Barnard? We don't know. So let's get started. Here we can see what pre-law is. Pre-law is basically an intention to attend law school in the future. It includes a collection of curricular and extracurricular experiences meant to prepare you for your law school career and law school and your law career. You should be using trusted information and trusted resources to inform you about how to prepare for law school. What it isn't is limited to your undergrad year. Okay, so if you decide, you want to change and come back, you can be pre-law later on in life. Law school will always be there. You don't have to go to law school directly after graduation. You can do it at any point in your career journey. It's also not a specific major or minor. Law schools accept students from any major, seriously. So finally, again, you should be using trusted information about how to guide yourself on this journey. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those resources can be throughout this presentation. Okay. So first, we can talk a little bit about where the Barnard community applies. Now, this is just information about where people apply. This isn't meant to tell people where to apply. This is just where Barnard people, whether they're current students or alums, are applying to. And this is the most recent information that we have available for the year 2020 to 2021. This is where people are applying. So as we can see, it's, the first couple of schools are in New York. Everybody loves New York. Everybody wants to stay in New York, and in the Northeast largely. So we see NYU, Columbia, Georgetown. DC is also a big area for those who want to go to law school. Penn, Fordham, UC Berkeley for folks who want to be on the West Coast, Northwestern, UCLA, Boston University, and University of Michigan. So we see a mix of New York schools, top 14 schools. That's where people tend to apply. Now, where they tend to matriculate, AKA where they tend to enroll, again, we're seeing a prevalence of New York schools. People want to stay in New York. So NYU, Fordham, CUNY, some folks are going to Harvard and Boston College. So again, people want to be in Boston. They want to stay on the East Coast. And then there's a tie for the, then there's Cardozo, and then there's a tie for the other schools that people go to, Berkeley, Stanford, Washington University, Emory, University of Miami, and Tulane. Okay, so we're seeing that there's a little bit more geographic diversity where people tend to matriculate. Here we're seeing the American Bar Association's recommendations for pre-law students. These are skills that you should be trying to hone in your journey to becoming a lawyer. Mastery of these skills will help you become an effective professional in the legal field. So we have problem solving, critical reading, writing and editing, oral communication and listening, research, organization and management, public service and promotion of justice, relationship building and collaboration, background knowledge and exposure to the law. Now, what I think is really awesome is that being a student at a liberal arts school, being an alum of a liberal arts school, you're already getting a lot of these skills accomplished just by completing your degree, right? Problem solving, critical reading, writing and editing, that's just writing your thesis, right? So as a Barnard student, you are getting very well prepared to enter the legal profession, even if you are not taking classes specifically having to deal with the law. You are getting a lot of the preparation right here at Barnard. As for academic preparation, as I said before, it's not necessary to have taken any specific courses or a major. Here are some guidelines. Law school is pretty academically demanding, so you want to take courses that are challenging, that require a significant amount of reading and writing, that require research, and entail critical and analytical thinking, okay? Law schools do not prefer one major over another, so you want to make sure that you're doing your best in whichever major you choose. Choose one that you can succeed in, okay? So if you leave here with nothing else, remember that, you only have one undergraduate career, so you should be enjoying it, choosing a subject that you really can dig into, because if you enjoy it, you're going to be able to do better than if you're fighting to, try to choose something that you think law schools are going to like. So try to keep that in mind as you're going through your academic journey here at Barnard. When it comes to academic preparation, this is what the American Bar Association recommends. They say, whatever major you select, you are encouraged to pursue an area of study that interests and challenges you, while taking advantage of opportunities to develop your research and writing skills. Taking a broad range of difficult courses from demanding instructors is excellent preparation for legal education. A sound legal education will build upon and further refine the skills, values, and knowledge that you already possess, okay? So this is straight from the source. This is the American Bar Association. This is what they are recommending for you academically. For extracurricular activities, you should, again, be doing the things that you enjoy and that will prepare you for law school. Taking on leadership roles in clubs, participating in internships, whether or not they have to do directly with the law, And performing community service will not only provide you with personal enrichment, these activities are also attractive to law schools. You should also not be afraid of doing other activities that will allow you to hone your research, to hone your skills. Think research, other employment opportunities, and clubs on campus. Okay, so again, you should be thinking about what are the things that are personally enriching me. Law schools don't have, a specific preference. They want to make sure that you are coming in with the skills that we have already talked about on the other page, the American Bar Association's recommendations, right? So there's a large range of activities that you can do in order to achieve those skills. Law school is intended to prepare you for a professional career, so you should use your time as a pre-law student to prepare for that, okay? Internships and other work experiences are a great way to learn some of the soft skills that are important to the workplace, okay? Networking is also important. You should be using your time as a pre-law student to learn about the profession from practicing lawyers and law students. You can use resources such as Barnard Connect and LinkedIn to connect with lawyers and find out more about the profession. So you can feel free to use LinkedIn, use Barnard Connect to reach out to alumni that are doing the same thing that you might be interested in doing, going to the same schools that you might be interested in going to. They are so eager to talk to you all. And I know that it's kind of hard to believe it, but they definitely want to connect. So don't be afraid if you see someone doing something cool, don't be afraid to, send them a quick message and just let them know that you're interested. Thank you, Laura, for putting the Barnard Connect URL into the chat room. If you haven't already signed up for Barnard Connect, Laura Maltz, who is another associate director here at Beyond Barnard, has very helpfully put the URL for Barnard Connect into the chat. So I accidentally have moved this forward. So let's start to talk about translating career interests into pre-law experiences. Now, one thing that I think can be really frustrating for pre-law students, especially as undergrads, is that a lot of internships are catered to law students. So you're like, I'm not in law school. I'm trying to gain experience to get into law school, but I can't get that experience because those are only for law students, right? So it's super frustrating. So, there are ways that you can get law experience without having to directly work in a legal setting. And one thing that I challenge students to do is think about the things that you're passionate about. Are you passionate about immigration law? There are a couple of organizations, Team TLC and Common Point Queens, for example, that are doing things like working with the migrant people that are being bused into the city, helping to resettle them, helping to help them with their legal issues. Think about the things that you are passionate about. If you want to do civil rights law, there is, of course, the New York Civil Liberties Union. And then there's also in New York City, I feel like we are very lucky because we have a lot of legislators around us. We have assembly people, we have council people, we have Congress people, we have state representatives, we have senators, like we have tons and tons of people that you can intern with, volunteer with, and they will help you understand what are the issues that regular New Yorkers are thinking about. What are we struggling with? What are we trying to gain access to? So being able to intern with, any one of these people, even, somebody that you think might have like a very small reach, is going to give you a lot of insight into what the realities of the legal system are today. So definitely take advantage of something like that. If you're interested in IP law, doing something in doing research in the hard sciences or humanities can help you understand what can be the impact of patents. We all have probably heard the lawsuit that Robin Thicke had against Marvin Gaye, right? That was IP. And that was music. So, getting familiar with these different industries and the different legal battles that they might be fighting is going to really expand your experience as a pre-law student and when you get into the classroom. And then finally, if you're interested in something like environmental law, organizations like Grow NYC and the West Harlem Environmental Action organization are organizations that you can get involved with that are doing work right here, right in this neighborhood, right in New York City. And you can kind of, again, see the realities of what happens when we do things to try to make changes to legislation. So these are just examples. You can kind of be creative depending on what you are interested in, what areas of laws you're interested in, what your passions are, to finding organizations that are going to provide you with those experiences. All right. So now let's transition to talk more about applying to law school. Okay, so law school is a pretty big commitment in terms of time, finances, and effort. You want to prepare yourself for what's to come. First, you're going to need to research. Make sure that you're taking time to look into the specific careers to which you want to enter. This will help inform you in two ways. It will let you know if you actually need to attend law school, because it's possible that the career you're interested in might not actually require law school. Second, if you do need to go to law school, you'll need to know which law schools specialize in the area or areas that you're interested in. You'll want to research schools and visit them when you're able to. You should be visiting me, also the pre-law advisor, when you have questions about the process. You should also be doing a little bit of what I call me-search, okay? Think about timing related to law school admissions. When would you like to apply? Why is this the right time for you? You'll also want to think about your fit for law school, and not just law school in general, but the law schools that you might be interested in. Every law school has a different vibe, so you want to make sure that your vibe matches with their vibe. Similarly, you're going to want to think about what you're bringing to the admissions process. How are your grades and test scores? How do they compare to other applicants at your prospective schools? What experiences are you bringing into the classroom? Law school is also a financial commitment. You should be thinking about how you're going to be paying for this. Law schools offer scholarships, and there are some waivers that you can use to apply to ease the financial burden of the application process, but it is still a huge financial undertaking. You should take some time to think about how you plan to pay for it. And then finally, if it's applicable to you, you should think about visa and immigration concerns. You can talk with an international student advisor to talk about what your options might be in relation to going to law school, timing your law school applications to make sure that you're not going to get jammed up. Now we're going to discuss some law school acronyms. First, the American Bar Association. This is the governing body for law schools and the legal profession. They're in charge of providing accreditation for law schools, administering the bar exam that you'll take after you've finished law school and you're about to become a lawyer, and keeping track of who has and hasn't been admitted to the bar. Next, we have the Credential Assembly Service, known as CAS or CAS. This serves as a kind of portfolio management service for law school applicants. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Next, we have the GRE, the Graduate Record Exam. This is one of the exam choices that you can take to apply to law school. Next, we have LSAC or LSAC. This is the Law School Admissions Council. This is kind of like the middleman between you and law schools when you're applying. We'll also talk about that. And then finally, we have our old friend, the LSAT, the Law School Admissions Test, the LSAT. This is the exam traditionally taken to gain admission to law school. So, CAS, Credential Assembly Service, is a service that you'll need to sign up for in order to apply for law school. It stores all of your transcripts, letters of recommendation, LSAT score, and score reports, and delivers them to the schools to which you are applying. You should register for an account at least 6 weeks before you intend to submit your applications. Your account will stay active for 5 years, but that timer restarts every time you register for the LSAT. So let's say you have a Credential Assembly Service account, and then 4 years in, you decide to apply to take another LSAT. That timer starts again. So it's not that you have 1 year left, you have now 5 years left. So it's good to know that you kind of have that banked for 5 years. An account costs $195, but you can apply for a fee waiver through LSAC if you need one. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about the parts of the law school application. Just like in college applications, you'll be required to submit a personal statement. In that statement, you may want to talk about your interest in legal education and why you're interested in attending that particular school. You can also submit a diversity statement, which, if it applies to you or if the school is requesting it, and supplemental essays that can be required by each law school. You'll also submit your test scores, either LSAT or the GRE, and then you're going to want to get transcripts from every school. So that includes if you took like a summer class back home, or if you did a study abroad somewhere, or if you get a master's degree or something like that, you're going to submit every single transcript from every school that you've attended after high school, or if you were doing like dual enrollment or something like that, you're going to submit that to LSAC. And then, of course, Barnard, of course. Then your resume, of course, letters of recommendation. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there are some fee waivers available through LSAC. There are 2 tiers of fee waivers. Both levels of the waiver include at least 1 administration of the LSAT prep, and at least 3 law school reports. So you should be able to apply to at least 3 law schools with the fee waiver. More information about the program is on lsac.org. And then you can also receive fee waivers for applications by asking for them through the schools. So if you've been on the pre-law toolkit, then you'll know that there is a spreadsheet that has we have gone through and looked at as many law schools as we can and documented if they have fee waivers available and basically like what you have to do to request one. So if you haven't already looked at that spreadsheet, you should take a look at it. So let's talk about testing. Every law school will accept the LSAT and many will accept the GRE. In terms of which one you should take, that's a personal preference, okay? You should look at the policies for the schools to which you are applying, because they might not even take the GRE and then you don't have a choice, right? So if they do take both, then you'll have to think about which one you think you're going to score best in. So the way that you do that is you kind of look at both, take practice tests in both, and see which one you score better in. So if you do decide that you want to take the LSAT, law schools will only look at the LSAT no matter if you did better in the GRE. So that's something to think about if you're thinking about taking the GRE. Now, when it comes time to take the test, whichever test, only do so when you're ready. Take practice exams. Wait until you've been scoring consistently within 2 points of your target score, 2 points higher than your target score, because generally when you take the exam, your score tends to fall a couple of points, 1 or 2 points, and then take the exam. Accommodations are available for both the GRE and the LSAT. You can apply for accommodations for the LSAT at the same time when you're registering. However, for the GRE, you need to apply for accommodations beforehand, get approved, and then you can take the exam. The good news about the GRE, though, is that it's offered basically all the time, literally all the time. You can take it from home or in a testing center. So there's a lot more flexibility with the GRE than the LSAT, which is offered about 10 times a year on Saturdays and Sundays. In terms of retaking the exam, you should, like I said, strive to take it when you're ready. Of course, there are things that happen that are outside of our control. So you should be taking the exam early enough that if you need to retake it before you apply, that there'll be time. So generally, that timing would be in the summer, so that if you need to take it in early fall, there's enough time for you to get your score back and submit your application early on in the cycle. Now, when it comes to studying for the LSAT or for the GRE, there isn't just one way to do it and one way to be successful. We've been able to see that many people have been able to be successful doing a lot of different kinds of methods of preparation. So you should think about yourself and what's good for you. If you're a very self-directed person, maybe you don't need to take a class, right? Maybe you can just get a book, put yourself on a schedule, and do what you need to do. Now, not all of us are able, right? So maybe you need a tutor if you're someone that needs a little external, not validation, but a little external help. Maybe a tutor is going to be best. Maybe you like to learn in a group setting, so maybe a class will be best. You have to think about what is going to be the best method for you, what your budget is like, and what your timeline is like. So those are my recommendations for that. When you sign up for the LSAT and for the GRE, you do get access to the Khan Academy test preparation site. So you do actually get free test preparation, whether you sign up with a waiver or you pay your own, you pay with your own money. There are ways for you to prepare with Khan Academy. So I see a question in the chat about the pre-law toolkit. The link for that, I believe, was tinyurl / BC pre-law. So feel free to use that to sign up. Okay, so now let's speak specifically about the application year. If you're applying for law school directly after undergrad, then this process will begin in the spring semester of your junior year. If you're applying at a time in the future, just think about when you want to go to law school and then subtract 3 semesters from that. So for example, if you're interested in entering law school in the fall of 2024, you would kind of start that process now. Okay, so when I say start the process, I don't mean like start with applications. There are different things that you do to kind of start leading up to it. So it's like a soft launch in a way. So the first thing that, go back, no spoilers. Okay, first thing that you want to do is think about who you want to be your letter of recommendation writers. Okay, so you want to identify those people and start floating the idea past them that you're interested in going to law school and find out if they would be interested or willing to write you a strong letter of recommendation. I word it that way because you do want a strong letter of recommendation and you want to allow them a little bit of leeway to, if they're not able to be able to say no. Even though it's hard to hear that they say no to you, it's better to know now that they can't do it than in the future when they've written you either not a strong letter or whatever, and you're always left wondering, like, is this the reason, whatever. So if you do the work on the front end to ask someone, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? That gives you room to either ask someone else or work on, if there's a reason why they can't write you a strong letter, maybe work on that before you formally submit your application. Next, you're going to want to start prepping, if you haven't already, for whatever standardized tests that you're going to be taking. And then that also includes registering and signing up for accommodations if you're taking the GRE. You should also, does FERPA apply to law school letters of recommendation? that's a good question. So you will have the option of waiving your right to look at letters of recommendation when you submit your when you are applying and going into the credential assembly service or whatever, and you put in your little recommenders names. We recommend that you waive your right to look at those because it can be a little bit of a red flag if you don't, because law schools might want to know, like, why do you want to see this? Why do you want to see this letter of recommendation? So that is what we recommend in terms of letters of recommendation, waiving your right to look, etc. Again, if you ask the question, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? You hopefully won't have to wonder about what your recommender is putting into the letter. So that's my answer for that. Thank you, Anissa, for for helping your classmate out by putting the URL into the chat. So if you haven't done that already, please click and go ahead and sign up for the toolkit. All right. So after you have asked for your letters of recommendation, started doing your LSAT or GRE prep, you want to sign up for Credential Assembly Service. Again, we already talked about it, $195, good for 5 years, you're good. You next are going to start doing your law school application list. And the way that you're going to do that is that you're going to start thinking about the schools that you might want to go to. You're going to do a little research. You're going to hopefully do the next thing, which is visit the law schools. Now, we are really fortunate, if you're here in New York, to be very close to a ton of law schools, even just in New York City, right? Even if we're just thinking Manhattan, there are tons of law schools here. So you should be visiting and taking note of what you like, what you don't like. Do you see yourself being a student here? Spring is a good time to do that. Spring and really summer when you're out of school. So take those visits and then start making your law school application list. So when you are curating your list, here are some things that you can think about when you're evaluating potential law schools. You can use the official guide to ABA-approved JD programs, which is on the LSAC website, to guide your search, okay? So when you're looking at schools, one thing that you might be interested in is financial aid. What kind of aid do they offer? Do they have any special programs that you might want to apply to? Next, you're going to want to think about location. Now, traditionally, applicants would consider where they want to practice and go to a law school in that state. Things have kind of shifted now where it's a little bit more open. You're able to, have a little bit more geographic freedom. What I would recommend is looking at each website's what's called the 509 reports, which every law school is required to complete. Part of that shows where law school graduates go after they've graduated, where they work, states, things like that, industries. And you can use that to help you think about where you should be attending law school. You also want to think about, like, is this a place in the country that you'll want to live for 3 years, right? 3 years can be a short or a long time, depending on how happy you are in a place. So you'll want to think about that. Clinics. So clinics are important if you want to specialize in a certain thing. Clinics are a way for you to train yourself in a legal specialty. So you want to go to a law school that's going to have the clinics that you are interested in. Next, bar passage rate. You want to go to a school that has a high bar passage rate, because that means that this school is helping to prepare law students to pass the bar, which is what you need in order to become a lawyer. Job placement. Again, you want to see where people are getting placed, and you want to see the graduate employment rate. You want to see how often or what is the percentage of people getting placed. Those numbers need to be high. Vibes. I'm a vibes person. Okay. Vibes is general. Vibe is a vibe. But when I say vibe, I mean what is it like when you go there? Do you feel like this is a place where you can succeed? Do you feel like this is a place where you can thrive academically? How is the library? How do the facilities look? If you need somewhere that's accessible, is it accessible? Are there, if you're interested in clubs, do they have the clubs that you might be interested in? You know, these are things that you can think about when you're trying to evaluate law schools. All right, so finally, let's talk about rankings. So I'm sure by now you've heard that a lot of schools are dropping out of participating in the US News and World Report's ranking system. Law schools, you know, they started it, and now some med schools are also dropping out. This is, you know, piping hot tea from like Monday, right? So when you are thinking about a law school, ranking should not be the number one thing that you use to apply to law school. You want to think about these other things that we've talked about. You're fit for a particular school because at the end of the day, the American Bar Association actually does not endorse any ranking list. So you should be applying to the schools that align with your wants and needs for law school. Okay, so let's talk about the summer. During the summer of your application year, you're going to need to get a lot accomplished. First, personal statements, okay? You should be drafting them and working with Beyond Barnard advisor to make sure that they're good to go. About 6 weeks before you decide to apply, you should be reaching out to your recommenders and officially letting them know that you want to apply. Third, you should be setting an appointment or two with Beyond Barnard to check in about your application progress and ask any questions that you have about the process. And then finally, you're going to want to take your entrance exam. Sophia, you have a question?
Yeah, for the pre-law advising, if we are graduated when we apply, are we still able to use Beyond Barnard resources, or can like get advising from like someone like yourself at Barnard?
So I am so glad you asked that question, Sophia. As a Barnard alum, as a member of the Barnard community, we will always be there for you. We will always be there for you. Yes, I hear the tears of joy in your voice. Yes, we will always be here. So you can always make an appointment. I don't know, like, when's the farthest Laura has seen people, but I've seen from like class of 05. No, even before that, because we've done other things. So you will always have access to us. Make appointments as of right now, unlimited appointments, personal state. 1980 was the farthest back that Laura has seen an appointment.
Wow.
So for the next 43 years, you will have access to Beyond Barnard. So
Thank you.
yes, of course. Thank you for asking that. I forgot to say that at the beginning. So again, you don't need to kind of rush these things. We'll be here when you're ready to do the application. All right. So as I was saying before, you know, in the summertime, this is when you're going to want to take your LSAT or GRE for the first time if you haven't already. This gives you enough time that if you need to retest for whatever reason, that there's enough time for you to do that and still apply early on in the cycle. Now in the fall, it is go time, okay? This is when everything starts to leave your hands, okay? First, you're going to want to make sure that you're working on the supplemental essays. You will usually not find out about supplemental essays until law schools open their applications, which is generally around September 1st. That's the earliest that they can open, and then it can go until October when they open. So as soon as they open, you'll find out about if they have any supplemental essays, what the topics are. That's when you're going to start working on those. If you want to apply for financial aid, this is when you're also going to do that. The FAFSA opens on October 1st. So you want to get your tax documents ready and ready to fill it out so that you can apply for everything at once. So you can get your financial aid letter and your acceptances and be able to navigate that at the same time. You want to finalize your applications by late October and submit by late November. Now, I say that with a couple of caveats. So submit by late November, I always recommend before Thanksgiving because you want to have a nice Thanksgiving, right? You want to have a Thanksgiving when you're not thinking about applications. However, if you need a week or 2 weeks or a month to get your application to its optimal state, then take that. It is much better for you to have a tip-top application that's submitted a little bit later than an application that you rushed and it's not your best to submit it earlier, okay? So if it takes you a little bit longer to get that personal statement together, or maybe you're up for a promotion at work, or you're up for a fellowship, or something that you think is gonna make your application better, taking a couple of weeks or a couple of months to make sure that that is gonna make your application stand out is gonna be better than, like I said, just submitting it on September 2nd, okay? All right, so another reason that I recommend applying earlier in the cycle rather than later is that law schools have more money at the beginning of the application cycle than at the end. So if you apply earlier, it can be more likely that you'll be able to get a scholarship or some kind of award than if you're applying later on in the cycle. So finally, we're in winter and spring. At this point, your applications will all be in and you should begin receiving responses. You want to review them carefully because there might be action steps and deadlines that you need to follow. If you're placed on a wait list, you want to consult with someone from our office to discuss strategies. You're also going to want to attend admitted students open houses so that you can meet your colleagues, meet professors, make decisions. If you're trying to decide between a couple of different schools, you definitely want to go to admitted students open house. You're going to confirm acceptances and make those deposits. And then if you are not attending a school that you got into, please let them know that that you are grateful, and also you are not going to their school so they can admit other people off of the wait list, right? We definitely want to think about the wait list folks, because I think we've all been on a wait list and waiting for someone to leave so that we can hopefully scuttle in. So as soon as you know that you're not going, inform the law school so that they can release someone else from a wait list. So here are some additional resources. A lot of them I talked about during this session. First and foremost, the American Bar Association, they have a pre-law guide that you can read and understand, the things that are expected. It's a really good source. Beyond Barnard, of course, as I mentioned, you will always, always, always have us. We can do things like talk about fit for law school, timing, application, personal statements, experiences, get your resume together for law school. When you get invited for interviews, we can do interview prep. We can do a lot to help support your application to law school. Barnard Connect, as Laura put the URL in the chat. This is a great place for you to connect and talk to lawyers and law students that are very eager to help you. There are now Barnard Connect groups that you can go into and meet other people from a school that you're interested in going to or studying a topic that you're interested in. So we highly recommend that. The Council on Legal Education and Opportunity is a nonprofit that holds tons of different workshops and information sessions throughout the year. So that's a really good place to look at. Khan Academy, as I mentioned before, is a test prep company that you can use when you're preparing for the LSAT or the GRE. LinkedIn, again, as I mentioned, great source for you to connect with folks that are doing things that you're interested in. LSAC.org is where you can search for law schools. They also have tons of programs, workshops. They have something called the Law School Admissions Forum, where all the law schools from, well, not all, but like many law schools from the country come together, and you can just visit them all. It's in Times Square every year, so it's a really good way for you to, if you're early on thinking about law school, it's a great way to get connected to admissions folks and really just start the conversation about law school. And then the National Association of Law Placement is basically the place that keeps statistics about the legal profession. So there are things like salary information about diversity in the legal profession, projections about the legal profession. So it is a really good place to get solid information about that. And then finally, of course, the pre-law toolkit, which our colleague Anissa put into the chat, the tiny URL. So just go ahead and click on that, connect to it, and that is where we have all of that. Let's see. Okay, so we have some upcoming pre-law events. We have 2 events dealing with paying for legal education. Part 1 is on Thursday, February 23rd from 12 to 1, and part 2 is on Monday, February 27th from 7 to 8. Information about those are both in Handshake. So if you just look for law school, legal education, those should pop up, and you should sign up for them. They're going to be really great. Let's see. Okay. All right. So thank you all. I'm going to pause the recording now, and we can have questions. So you can feel free to go into the chat, or you can unmute yourself